Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Partnership Guys podcast. I'm Todd Leonardis with Rob Stoker and Steven Schneider. We're the Partnership Guys. We help partners achieve the win. Whether you're looking to build it, fix it, exit it, or end it, we can help you get to the win, whatever that is. Call us before you call your lawyer. Today, I appreciate you guys joining in and coming to listen to us talk about a topic we're very passionate about, which is partnerships. You've already found us, you already listened to us, but you can listen to us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can find all of our written materials all around the web. Think Substack, Medium, but the best place to find us is at thepartnershipguys.com, where you can actually take a score app to, just evaluate the health of your partnership. It's a couple minutes. We highly suggest jumping on there and taking that test. Today, we really want to talk about money and equity in partnerships and having the hardest conversations without building resentment, because money doesn't necessarily ruin partnerships. It's the poor communication about the money that ruins partnerships. So it's really important to be able to have these conversations about what money and equity looks like, because you might think they're acquiescing right now in good faith, but that we have seen turns into resentment down the road, or abuse, one of the two. So it's really important to kind of talk about this, because, as we all know, people get very emotional about their money. Why is money so emotional? To us and what we've seen, money does represent more than income. And it also often becomes a measure of value, effort, respect. And most partners don't talk about it until it's too late. I know, because it happened to me. So would love to hear what you guys think about this topic. And Stephen, and Rob will tell them about like how we handle it.
I mean, it's emotional, and in our society teaches us not to talk about money. Like, how many conversations have you had with your friends about how much money they make? It's just like a taboo subject. Mm-hmm. But in a partnership, you can't do that. You have to talk about money. Number one, everybody knows, all the partners, or at least should know, the numbers. And so, having conversations around money, and Todd and I learned this really, really early in our partnership, is really important to have those conversations, because it's not necessarily about equality in the partnership as far as making the exact same amount of money, although there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. But it's about making sure that everybody feels like they're getting paid and they're getting compensated fairly for the work that they're doing. And so, it's important that you have a conversation about money, so that you make sure that everybody feels like they're being treated fairly.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. Money means something different to everybody, and everybody has different goals and different wants and different timelines. Todd, you have young kids. I have, kids that are, above the college age at this point. So just, it's all different. But I can tell you from my experience in so many partnerships, the great ones and the one bad one, money can represent more than income. It's often, a measuring stick for value, effort, respect, what the business is doing. There's an interpretation of the value that we all bring to the table that are bringing those dollars in that sometimes get emotional. And the partnerships that I've been in, the one partnership that was really bad and money was a real issue, it's that we avoided having that conversation. And next thing I knew, it was too late. The money was not the real issue. It's what the money represented. So in our solar business, my neighbor, he was the engineer. He designed the systems at home on his computer, and he saw the value of that as much greater in what I was doing, out there selling and, meeting contractors and townships and things like that. He didn't see any real monetary value there. He saw the monetary value in what he was doing, and it was never a conversation until it was much too late.
And you've talked before about how that business was doing well. You guys were making money. So it's not a cash flow conversation that we're talking about. It's a conversation about making sure that people feel heard, they feel like they're being treated fairly, and that it's clear about who's getting what and why. And, like I said, Todd and I learned about that early on in our relationship.
Yeah. And, right now, so far, we just talked about, getting money out of the business, but also the money conversations about getting them put into the business. Those are not always really talked about and what is expected. We see it all the time where, you'll have one partner that just kind of covers any cash calls and is throwing money in for whatever reason, or, the actual, there might be 50-50 partners, but it might be 25-75 of actual equity, which depends on the whole arrangement, which can work if it's being discussed and talked about. On a personal level, I was a minority owner in a business. I had the majority of the capital and credit in the business. And when, the shit hit the fan, I still only had that minority share, even though I was the most exposed. And, at the time, right, when things are good, you're like, nah, it's right. That would never happen to us. I would never get taken advantage of. It happens, So if things aren't documented, papered right, discussed in advance, you could really be running into years of headaches after the fact. Because again, it's not about equal, it's about fair. And, equal ownership does not always mean equal contribution, because those contributions change over time, right? So, and that, now we're getting into, kind of a time conversation, right? Everybody's time is worth money. So if you have a partnership that, you have operating partners and you have investment partners, they're different and they got to be looked at differently. If the operating partner should be, it's not uncommon or unreasonable for an operating partner to make more out of a business than it would be an investment partner. So that changes. So, I mean, really fairness comes from transparency and agreement, not just your assumptions based on it.
Yeah, and it's about having those hard conversations. I've always said I've had some amazing partnerships with great friends. My friends from college, we built a trading floor together and we had all those hard conversations. We laid out the percentages. It was not easy. Those were really hard to lay out the percentages that we all were going to A, invest in that business, and then B, take out of that business if and when that ever happened. Those conversations were really hard, but they were had together. They were, we were unified in those hard conversations, and we understood that it was what it was, that it didn't affect our friendship. It's a business conversation that has to be had. And going back to my neighbor, we didn't even know if we had a business. So there was kind of an air for us, like, I don't even know if this is a business, but if it is, we'll figure it out later. And what doomed us was, like you said, Stephen, the money started coming in and we didn't have the conversation yet. I just assumed we're 50-50 partners. We're, basically in my head, we're putting in 50-50 worth of value. And so we're taking 50-50 out. And he had a very different opinion of that. And I thought, it was discussed. It was in the operating agreement. It is what it is. And clearly it wasn't. And we had issues because we didn't like each other. It was just a really good business, but two people that didn't like each other and didn't want to talk to each other and had no interest. So it's, all the issues were there. But that monetary conversation was certainly never really discussed, never really had. The goals weren't discussed in those ways, and the lack of communication just doomed the partnership. And the great partnerships I've had, the communication is what got us through it. It's an open, even if it had to be revisited, it was, hey, I'm feeling something and it has to be revisited. Okay, let's sit in a room and let's look at it. Let's look at what we're all doing, how it's all going. And we might have to come up with a new plan that works for everybody.
And
Yeah, go, buddy.
Sorry, it's not always money in and money out, right? It can also be about how the business takes care of each of the partners. So, as an example, 20 years ago, whatever it was, Todd and I there was expenses that were running through the business, like, car leases and gas and stuff like that. We were using the vehicles for business purposes. And so we ran expenses through and we started to realize that I had little kids at the time. So I'm driving around in a minivan and Todd's got no wife, no kids, and he's driving around in, yeah, exactly. He's driving around in a really nice car. And he's also driving 3 times as far as I am to go back and forth to work. And it became pretty clear pretty quickly that the business was covering a lot more expenses for Todd than it was for me. So what? Still covering my car, still covering my gas, doesn't matter. And it wasn't bothering me, but I felt like we had to sit down and have a conversation about whether or not we wanted to run these expenses through the business, or do we say, look, we're running X dollars through the business, whatever, $1,000 a month, whatever it is. Instead of doing it this way, where you might be getting more than me, or I might be getting less than you, or whatever, is let's just put it all into comp and then you do with it what you want. Now, that costs us a little bit of money in taxes, but we walked away from that conversation a stronger partnership because we were able to have that difficult conversation without getting upset about it and walking away feeling like we were treating each other fairly and we knew what we were doing and we had the freedom of choice for whatever it is we wanted to do. Whatever lifestyle we wanted to lead, we could, and it wasn't going to impact the other partner.
I mean, it's a great point, right? Because equal and fair are not always the same thing, and partners really don't argue over the numbers. They argue over what's fair. And that was what you and I thought was the most fair thing to do, right? But it was more foreshadowing the future as, lifestyles expand and business expands. And I'd rather have the conversation early and take that whole thing off the table than wait until it's an issue and that there's an argument about it. So I think, for that, I think we did a great job of, eliminating that noise. And like to your point, right? It was, we might have not had all the tax benefits. What's more important? Where are you going to make more money? Yeah. Took a whole bunch of issues off the table. Like, how are you going to make more money? You're going to make money on the $300 a month you save in taxes, or are you going to, with a stressed partnership, or are you going to make more money when you're all aligned, right? So, there's conversations that every partnership should have. I mean, it's obviously compensation and distribution, or everyone kind of understands that, but they don't really talk about it. They kind of wait until it's time, as opposed to laying out a plan.
And that's what we're seeing with the people we're working with is that they don't have that plan. They didn't have those hard conversations. And so we're coming in and saying, hey, we have to have these hard conversations and we have to do it together and we have to do it openly and honestly and put it all on the table. Right here is our safe zone to get it all out and put it on the table. We all want to get to the win here. Like we talk about, and a win for one partner might be different than a win for another partner. We are dealing with partners and some of them just want to get away and want to do something else with their life and, move on. And the other partner wants to build and grow. And that's, having those hard conversations is what's enabling us to do that with partnerships and businesses. And then guess what? Sometimes a partner is removed and they go along, live their happy life. And the other partner, now it's up to them to build and grow the business the way they see fit. And, that not every partnership, clearly, not everybody has those hard conversations. Not everybody's willing to. The easy thing for you to do, Stephen, was just to let it go. The easy thing was just to let it go. I can swallow it. I can eat it. I can just watch it go. It's not all that big of a deal. There's other bigger things here, and let me just not talk about it. And that's what I admire about your partnership so much, is because you realize that if you did that, maybe that issue, maybe you would have somehow buried that but the next one was coming and it would have made it that much worse. And the next thing's coming and it just makes it that much worse. And all of a sudden, things start to pile up because you weren't willing to talk about it. And like I said,
eventually that pot just boils over. All these little things add up.
Yep.
And so we talked last time about doing a regular partnership review and getting off site and all that kind of stuff. And when Todd and I have done this over the years, we always talk about money, and it feels like a business conversation, but it's not.
It's not, because we could be talking about our lifestyle expectations, right? Like what do we need, from the business to, for our lifestyles? We want to make sure we're aligned on reinvesting profits versus taking income, which you find a lot with partners with big age disparity, or certainly, horizon disparity. A lot of people actually don't talk about what the financial goals are for the business, if you could believe that. And how those decisions might be made. So it's key to put those in your offsites, to talk about those. Yeah, obviously, the offsite partnership meeting will bring in business, and that's the perfect place for it. Because if you don't define the financial rules, your emotions will eventually, and they're not always good. So
and I don't know where it lands, but if you talk to like marriage counselors and stuff, and you ask them like, what are the top 3 issues that couples run into? Money is always on that list, right? And it's the same thing with the partnership. It's a relationship. And if you aren't open with the money, and you think because you both look at P&Ls and you look at balance sheets and the cash flow statements, like, oh, we're fully understand the money thing and how the business is handling the money. But in reality, not having that conversation about, how the partnership is handling the money and reviewing that on a regular basis will absolutely lead to problems in the business. It may not pop up as a money problem, especially if the business is making money, but it's going to build resentment. It's going to build mistrust, and that ultimately is going to destroy the partnership.
Yeah, we have regular conversations about money because we're both responsible for different, or the 3 of us were responsible for different aspects of the money, and certain decisions impact others, right? So, I might be in a money hoarding stage, let's just say, because I know we have some big stuff coming where, say hypothetically you want to take a distribution or bonus, whatever you have. If you're not having those conversations, you're hearing no, you're not getting it. And then that's where the emotion and the personal comes in, because you don't have the context per se. So it's very, very important to have routine conversations, not emergency conversations, which most people that we have come across absolutely do. Because transparency is going to be the best investment you can make into your partnership.
I mean, and we talked a year ago about my 2026, which involved 2 of my kids getting married. So cash flow for me personally this year is tough, right? And so it was important to have a conversation last year to talk about, okay, what are we looking at as far as income is concerned? What are we looking at as far as business projections? So that I can, on a personal level, be comfortable with where I'm at and where I'm at with the business. Just removes the surprises, right? I mean, I know where I'm at. I know we had this conversation. My life circumstances, very different than you guys. But at the same time, we all walked away from that conversation feeling very good about where we all were and making sure that we were all going to be open and honest about, what the financial situation was going to look like over the course of 2026.
Yep. Yeah, we all have different risk tolerances. We all have different goals. That it's the beauty of it is the conversation and having it and throwing it all on the table. And I love watching you guys do it and your partnership over decades and how you've done it. And I love how you laid out the blueprint for how the 3 of us are doing it. And it's been amazing and fun to be a part of. And it's fun to and impactful to help other people have these difficult conversations. Say we have to talk about this, otherwise, it's doomed. Or even when it is, we're seeing that just having the conversation moves the needle. That we're dealing with partnerships who think that it's beyond repair, and we say no. Let's get this on the table and let's talk about it. And we see how instantly having those conversations with partnerships,
the conversation in and of itself builds trust in the partnership.
Yep.
And that's what you want to do is communicate and build trust.
Absolutely. When partners communicate openly about their finances, trust inevitably just grows alongside the business, because, we have found healthy partnerships don't avoid those money conversations. They just normalize them. They got to be part of the routine. It's okay. Guys, this is great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Great conversation. Again, tough conversation for people that aren't used to doing it. Again, I said it at the open. You can find us at thepartnershipguys.com. We help partnerships achieve the win. And again, we see it in all stages from building to ending. So if you want to build it, fix it, exit it, or end it, please reach out to us. You can find us again on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and all of the sources of your written material. I think we have a new Inc. article out there right now. So please look us up and give us a call. All right. You can reach us at thepartnershipguys.com. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.